If you ever looked at your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're probably making one of these budgeting mistakes without even realizing it. Hi, I'm Jacob Wade from Lunch Money. I'm a financial coach, and I want to share with you 10 subtle money habits that are quietly sabotaging your budget even without you noticing. Now, these are not obvious mistakes, and most budgeting advice actually doesn't address these, but once you see them, you'll never budget the same way again. Now, stick with me through all 10 of these because some of them are very sneaky, and changing just one might save you hundreds of dollars per month. So let's get into it. All right, number one is guessing your spending. When you create a budget, you start with your income at the top and you put your expenses, your fixed expenses down here, and then, about what you spend in your variable expenses below. It's pretty simple. Take your income minus your expenses. That's how much you can save per month. The problem is those numbers on paper mean nothing. They mean nothing if you're not basing it on your real life. Here's what I mean by that. Over the last 90 days, let's say, you have made money purchasing decisions, whether it's paying your bills or just buying food or shopping online. Those decisions add up over 90 days to show your spending. If you don't actually look at that spending first before you create a budget, you will create a fake budget with fake numbers that don't actually mean anything. And when you can't stick to that budget, it's mostly because you're not living in reality. What I like to do with all my coaching clients is we do what's called a financial audit. And what we do is we actually look at the last 90 days of spending, we categorize everything, and then we average it out. How much on average in each of these categories are you spending? Do you spend $500 a month on groceries or $800 a month on groceries? Well, let's look at the actual data. So then when we create the first budget, it's based on those averages, not just on what they wish they were spending. So again, for that example, if you're spending $500 a month on food, but you try to budget for $300, you're going to blow that budget every single time. Or if you think you spend about $150 a month on gas, but it's actually $250 a month, you're going to blow that budget. So you got to base your first budget on realistic data, on the actual numbers. And of course, here at Lunch Money, we actually build that into the program. In fact, when you connect your financial accounts to Lunch Money, we'll pull in your data from the past, and you can actually look at trends. How much have I spent over the last few months in these categories? And when you create the budget and you actually just hover over a category, it'll show you, here's the average spending in this category over the last 3 months. We'll give you the real numbers so you can create a real budget that you can actually stick to. All right, budget mistake number 2 is forgetting irregular expenses. It's easy to create a budget based on what you normally spend on, like here's my bills, here's my groceries. That stuff is common, but when things come up that are not normal every single month, that will blow your budget every single time. Now, the best way to save for these things is to create savings accounts for these irregular expenses, things like Christmas, holidays, upcoming travel, car maintenance, a phone replacement fund, right? Things that don't happen every month, but they can be very expensive. And if you create savings accounts for each of these goals, in fact, I have an entire video on creating savings accounts for all those goals right here. I'll link it up here. It's called digital sinking funds. But the idea is you open these accounts, you name them, right? Christmas, vacation, cousin's wedding, car maintenance, and then you put small amounts per month into those savings accounts. So when that expense comes up, it doesn't destroy your entire budget. If you forget to save for things like upcoming travel, you might have to grab the credit card and go several $1,000s into debt. But if you save $200 a month for the next year, you now have $2,400 for that vacation. So setting up a system where you automate a little bit of money away per month, you build it right into the budget for these irregular expenses, and it will stop blowing your budget, save you money, and stop you from going into debt. And speaking of saving money, budget mistake number 3 is not automating things. You need to automate as much of your budget as possible. And what I mean by that is most people set up automatic bill pay. That's pretty straightforward, right? Your mortgage or your rent, your car payment, your utilities are usually automatically paid, but you also need to do the same thing for your savings and your investments. Now, I have an entire video right here called Reverse Budgeting, and the entire system is built on saving and investing first and then automating that process. But the best way you can do that is to, like I said, set up maybe several savings accounts. Not only are you saving for things like Christmas and vacation and travel, but things like building your emergency fund. Or maybe you open a Roth IRA and you need to start investing. You know that that's important. Well, the best way to make sure you always do that no matter what is to do it in the background. So these savings accounts you set up, you can set up what's called a recurring transfer. And that means it's money transferred from your checking into your savings automatically on a specific schedule. What I like to do, let's say I get paid every other Friday. On the following Monday, to make sure the money's sitting in my account, I set up an automatic transfer, a recurring transfer, to move over to each of these savings accounts. So $100 goes to Christmas, and $200 toward my vacation fund, and $100 toward car maintenance. And then do the same thing with your investments. $100 can go over to your Roth IRA, or $200 per paycheck. Whatever you want to do, set those things up, set them up to be recurring so that the money just leaves your account. You don't even have a choice in it. It happens in the background. The money's there when you need it. The money's growing in your investments, and you just live on what's left over. So setting up automations can save your budget, your sanity, and help you build savings at the same time. All right, budgeting mistake number 4 is just creating too many categories, trying to track too many things. If you create a budget and it has 70 different categories and you're trying to track every penny of every single category, you're going to lose your mind. Not only are you going to be fixating on, making sure everything's exactly categorized correctly, and we're going to split the bill here and all that stuff, but you're going to just be overwhelmed by the amount of data you have, and you can't make meaningful decisions. You lose sight of the big picture. The whole idea is you lose the forest through the trees. You're stuck in the woods, but you need to zoom back out and take a look at the bigger picture. I made an entire video right here called the only 18 budget categories you will ever need. And these core categories can sum up 99% of your budget. Of course, you can customize as you need, but simple is better when it comes to creating a budget that works. So you have less to track, you have bigger picture categories, and they sum up the total of what you're doing so that you spend less time worrying about the categories and more just trying to stay within the bounds of what you created. And it'll help you make simpler money decisions and better money decisions going forward without being overwhelmed by data. All right, budgeting mistake number 5 is just simply timing. Sometimes timing when your bills go in and out and how you spend money can throw you into a world of trouble. If you are in a place where maybe you live paycheck to paycheck currently, you understand this, right? You have extra money in your checking account, and then all of a sudden you have a surf and turf budget. We're going to get steak and lobster and we're going to go do all these things, but then, oh crap, this next bill came up and I forgot about that thing. That auto debit came out of my account and boom, I just went underwater. You overdraw. You might get hit with non-sufficient fund fees, which are massive, or you got to pull out the credit card to pay for an expense that you did have the money for, but you accidentally spent it. And then sometimes you live on very little until you get paid next, and that cycle can just continue over and over. So there's a couple of things you could do. One is called the paycheck budgeting method. Again, I made an entire video. Check it out. The link will pop up right here. We'll have links down below as well. But when you budget by paycheck, what you're doing is going, what do I have right now, literally today, and when do I get paid next? How do I manage my money between now and that date? So if you don't get paid for another week, I've got 7 days to handle the funds that are in my account until that paycheck hits. And then when that paycheck hits, all I'm budgeting for is maybe the next 2 weeks, right? Just until that next paycheck hits. So instead of worrying about all these other things, you go, okay, let me make sure I have enough money for the things that are going to come out of my account over the next 2 weeks, including groceries and online shopping, spending, transportation, things like that, as well as all of your bills. But that paycheck budgeting method will help you lock in on your timing. The next thing you're going to want to do eventually is get a month ahead of your money. Again, I have an entire video on getting a month ahead of your money. Check it out right here. But when you're a month ahead, that means starting on the very first day of the month, you have all the money you need for the entire month. So if your budget is $5,000 a month, on the first of the month, you have $5,000 already saved, deposits right into your account. You pay all your bills up front, and then you just live on what's left over. It simplifies your life, lowers your stress, and keeps you away from ever overdrawing your account again. All right. Budget mistake number 6 is not having any fun built into your budget. Yes, you literally need to plan to spend money frivolously. Please do it. This sounds counterintuitive when you're trying to save money, but it's so important to make sure that you actually set aside money for the things you enjoy in life. Otherwise, you're just going to get worn down. If you're on an extremely strict budget for months on end, you're going to lose motivation. Something will come up, or you'll have to pass up on things you enjoy, and you're just going to resent the budget. So instead, building guilt-free spending money. If you have the ability, building $100 a month of guilt-free money, or maybe even $200 a month of, I will spend this on whatever I want and I'm not accountable to anybody. I can just do it because I feel like it. Now, it's important to stick to that number. Don't overdo it. But if you can stick to that, you'll actually be able to choose to spend on things that you like and enjoy and add a little spice to life. But then you can stick to the rest of your budget a lot easier. All right, number 7 is creating a budget and etching it in stone. Do not do this. Your budget, just like your life, is dynamic. And when you're trying to live on the same budget every single month, but every single month is different, you're going to get frustrated. Things are going to come up. You're not going to plan for unexpected expenses, or maybe you don't look at your calendar and go, oh yeah, I have this thing happening and make sure I put it into the budget. And then you blow the budget, you get frustrated, you rip it up, you're like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You need a flexible budget system. You need to analyze before the month begins, what is happening in the next 30 days? Do we have a plan for it? Do I have the money set aside for these things that are going to come up this month? Wait, could be a wedding, could be an event, could be an annual bill that's coming up. Have I been putting money aside for this? You need to make sure your budget is flexible, just like your life. If you try to set it in stone, you will just be frustrated every single time because no 2 months are the same. All right, number 8 is unrealistic expectations for your budget. Now, this kind of ties into the first one, but if you create a budget based on what you would like to be spending, but it's not rooted in reality, you're going to set yourself up for failure, right? Maybe you're on a kick and you're like, I need to save $5,000 in the next 60 days. How do I do this? Well, number one, of course, I got a video on that. Check it out right here. But if you try to create a budget where you just cut everything out and then you start to go throughout the month and you realize you can't do that, you're going to quickly throw it out the window, and you might even spend more than you would in a normal month because you're so frustrated, right? I see this all the time with coaching clients. If they sit down and go, okay, I need to save money on food. We're spending $800 a month. I think we should be spending $500 a month. That's a great thought, but actually planning the steps to get there is a lot more involved, and reducing your spending on food by like 40% in one single month, that is just not going to happen. So you need to take incremental steps to get to these goals. So maybe the first month, like, let's spend $50 less this month, just 50. Let's do some meal prep so that we have planned meals on weekends. Weekends is when we normally eat out, right? Just these small wins. Then once you get used to that, then you can go, okay, let's scale back on, individual meals, and let's buy more in bulk and do some more meal planning for the week, and let's find stuff that's on sale, right? You could start to stack wins and maybe lower your budget down to that $500 a month at some point. But if you just jump right into, I'm going to cut this, I'm going to turn my thermostat all the way down, I'm going to, I'm going to save money in a bajillion different ways, you're going to blow every single one of those categories. You're going to get very frustrated and feel like a failure because you couldn't do it, but it's because you were setting unrealistic expectations for yourself. You need to be realistic, use real numbers, incremental changes, and then you can transform your budget. All right, the number 9 budgeting mistake is more of a mindset thing, but it's thinking that when you get on a budget, you are now going to restrict your lifestyle. Budget does not equal handcuffs. Budgeting, in fact, breaks you free. It gives you financial clarity on where your money has been going, where it should be going, and then it gives you freedom to spend on those things. When you create a budget, you're just creating a plan. That's all it is. So like, let's say you're going on vacation and you want to do all of these things, but if you make no plans for it, you don't know how to get the experience you want to do, you didn't sign up for it, you didn't set aside money for it. Like, if you don't actually plan for the thing, it doesn't happen. But a budget is adding in the stuff that you enjoy, cutting up the stuff you don't want to spend money on. You tell yourself, I don't want to spend money on this stuff. Let's free up more money toward the things I do. So a budget needs to think of it like the key that unlocks the handcuffs. You're handcuffed if you have no budget. The key that unlocks the handcuffs is your budget, is the plan for your money, which then allows you to put it toward the things that you actually care about. So you got to just switch your mindset, especially when you're creating a budget, especially if you're staring at like a spreadsheet or something like that. Like, it can just feel depressing, to be honest, but you can actually create a budget, build in some fun, like we talked about, and unlock financial freedom, save more money, start investing for your future, and experience more financial freedom in your life. So budgeting equals freedom. Just remember that. Budgeting equals freedom. All right, and the number 10 budgeting mistake is to not use the right tools to actually track your money. Listen, it's perfectly fine to use a paper and pen to create your first budget. In fact, I have an entire video right here on creating your first budget and how to use a paper and pen to just start with your income, your fixed expenses, your variable expenses, savings, all of those things. You can just start there, but you're not going to flip that sheet of paper over and write down every single transaction. We live in a digital world. It just doesn't make sense. And while spreadsheets can work for some people. Not very many of them are going to be able to automatically track where your money goes. So using a good budgeting tool or tracking app is going to keep an eye on your money, help you see the data, exactly what's going on, and help you make smarter money decisions. Of course, that's the thing that we've built here at Lunch Money. You can connect your financial accounts and we will automatically track and categorize everything for you. We'll show you your average spending. We'll show you any recurring expenses that go out the door. We'll even got a calendar view to show you here's some bills that are upcoming. We want to bring all that data in to sort of take the mental load off and make budgeting simple. And then you can use all of the data to make good money decisions. You could check in at any time and go, okay, we've got about this much left in these categories, and you're going to save more money when you have the right tools in place. Again, if you want to join us, we're going to give you a free trial. So if you click the link below, you can grab 30 days free of Lunch Money. You can connect your bank accounts, your credit cards, any spending account, and you can start to see here's how my money comes in, here's where it goes out. You can do that financial audit that we talked about and actually look, what am I spending? And you can create a realistic budget based on the things that are important to you that you can actually stick to. And maybe you're a couple watching this and you're like, I need to figure out how to budget together. I actually made an entire video on how to budget for couples, how to have budget meetings and meaningful conversations so you can hit your financial goals. Check it out right here.